Welcome to the Region Free Gamers Podcast, and on today's episode, we do the Lance Vans dance.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Region Free Gamers Podcast, the podcast that is fluent in gaming. My name is Arnie, Mr. Magic himself, and I'll be your host for today's episode as we take a trip to Vice City on WRFG 103.7. Before we get to all that fun stuff, quick reminder, please take the time to rate and review us on iTunes. I know we say this every episode, but it's truly the best way you can support what we do and help us grow. With that out of the way, let me take a minute to introduce the other voices that will be joining me today. First off, we have from the northern regions of the Great White Wilderness of Canada, Paul.
Oh, dude, it was so hard not for me to just laugh all over that intro. That was awesome.
And now we just don't laugh at all.
Yeah, exactly. now it's over. That's the
Everybody
end of the
died.
No, we do have a couple more people.
Silence.
We have the Vice City OG, now living in the suburbs of Liberty City, Ozzy.
Hey, yo, it's Mr. Fresh, now Mr. Wild Style, coming straight from Liberty City.
And of course, you've already heard his voice, and you know that if we're doing a Grand Theft Auto episode, there's only one man we can get. The one who put us on the map in the first place, number one in Germany. Back again, potentially against his will, Anthony, a.k.a. Polybits. How you doing, Anthony?
Yeah.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, I'm actually
Now,
holding his
Anthony,
girlfriend hostage right now.
I know you've been on the show before, so I'm not gonna intro you again. But I think most people, I think their first question upon hearing that you came back to this show would be why.
Why? That's an interesting question. I would say, though...
I'm giving him free legal advice.
Yeah, that, bagels, coffee, and my girlfriend has the flu, and she's home. And
Well,
I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there.
And if I can interrupt, Arnie, love the intro where you said he's the only guy we could get.
Yeah.
Backed by popular demand from Germany, Anthony Polybits.
Yo, I made it big in Germany. Me and the Hoff are like going strong in Germany right now.
But so, Vice City. We're doing Vice City. We're doing another Grand Theft Auto episode. Clearly because the first one was one of our more popular episodes, so we got to ride that
hit, just like GTA 3.
as hard
it
as
was
we
a big
possibly
hit.
can.
Internet famous.
Oh, yeah.
So Vice City, quick hits, released October 29th of 2002 in North America, November 8th of 2002 in Europe. It was hot on the heels of Grand Theft Auto 3. Grand Theft Auto 3 being the highest selling game of 2001, Vice City being the highest selling game of 2002. It was later ported to the Xbox as a double pack, and then later on I think there was a triple release with San Andreas. Developed by Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games. It was their most expensive game up to that time. It had a budget of $5 million, which is insane to think about in a way that $5 million at one point was like a lot of money to make a video game.
And most of that probably went to voice acting and songs.
Yeah.
Correct. Like $5 million
amazing.
is what you make like a low grade like PS3 game on. You know what I mean?
Arnie, let's take a step back. Do you know if Vice City was released in Japan?
So that's an interesting question because
that's why I asked
looks
it.
like I know. Well, based on what I could find, and I could be completely wrong, the original PS2 release did not release in Japan. I think they eventually got a release on Windows and maybe as one of the later ports. But the original PS2 release, I don't think released in Japan, which is also insane considering how much this game like sold. The fact that it didn't sort of have that sort of worldwide release that a lot of these big games have.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing here no release in Japan. And the PS2 version was not even released in Australia. So poor Luke, did not get this originally, even though he was probably in his late, toddler years. Or
I mean, considering the way Australian releases work, I wouldn't be surprised if it released like 2 months from now.
After hearing this podcast, Australia's like, you know what?
We need to fix this.
We're going to release this game.
We really need to fix this, guys.
Number 1 in Australia.
Number 1 in Australia. We're moving on up. But, I think that it's worth taking a second to talk about how crazy that is that one company released in back-to-back years like 2 of the most influential games of all time, right? Like, am I crazy to think that?
No, not at all. It's bonkers, dude. Like, Grand Theft Auto 3 just completely changes the blueprint, and then Vice City takes it and levels it up like 10 times. And within a year, are you kidding me?
I know. And that's the thing is, I think Ozzy had pointed this out to me earlier, is that I don't even think of it this way, but Vice City wasn't even like the proper sequel to Grand Theft Auto 3. Like, Vice City is not Grand Theft Auto 4. You know what I mean? It seemed like Vice City was sort of a experiment / side project they've been working on, but it turned out to be, one of the best Grand Theft Auto games in the entire series. For a little bit of context, like, this game has sold to date 17.5 million copies, and that's even more than GTA 3's 14.5 million. In the first 2 days of release, this game is already 1.4 million seller.
And you gotta think about this in the context of the PS2 era, where, breaking 1 million was a huge event.
Yes.
Like, I remember that the first Onimusha broke 1 million, and Capcom was like, holy shit, let's commission 2 more sequels on this right away.
I mean, you gotta think of this in the sense of, like, even in modern times, I think Persona 5 is, like, the best-selling Persona game, and that game has maybe sold, like, 3 million? 4 million?
Well, nowadays, I mean, Tomb Raider sells 3 million, and Square Enix is like, oh, it actually underperformed.
Yeah, like it
bombed. So it's a different context, but back in the day, 1 million was nothing to scoff at. I mean, most games back in the day, if they broke 500,000, that was considered a success. Yeah. I mean, of course, you have to consider that the budgets were smaller, but with a game like this, that with a budget of 5 million, breaking 1.4 million within the first 2 days, you already made 100 times your budget, basically.
You paid Burt Reynolds already.
You already got Burt Reynolds out of the way.
and that's sort of the thing, right? Is, obviously a very expensive game to make, definitely made back its budget with interest. So it worked out for them. But I think that a lot of the reason that this game was so successful is, that's the crux of what we're going to talk about on this episode, is all those factors. But the incredible thing, I think, for me is not only did you have in GTA 3 one of the most influential games of all time, like we said, but then you follow it up with another game that's just as influential, if not more so. And then not only is it a system seller, because I think on the heels of GTA 3, I think whatever Rockstar put out, unless it was absolute garbage, was gonna be a
state
big
of
seller,
emergency.
Because you had such a huge install base of GTA 3 people, right? But this game was also like critically lauded. It won a ton of, Game of the Year awards in 2002. It was the highest rated PS2 game on Metacritic for 2002, and it's the 5th highest rated PS2 game overall on Metacritic. So it's not like this wasn't just a sort of bang bang, reskin sequel that they put out. They put like real work into this game.
You gotta think, I mean, coming off the heels of our GTA 3 episode, that game we mentioned flew under the radar. And in fact, I was reading some interviews where they were like, okay, well, in the first few weeks it was like, it's not performing that well, and then like, in 2 months it was just like, holy shit, we sold this amount. So it really flew under the radar. But with this, it was an event. Yeah. Like, honestly, if you talk to anyone, they were like, oh yeah, Vice City's coming out. A big part of it was a controversy that had come off the heels of GTA 3. Yeah. But at the same time, it really had entered that stratosphere of a worldwide event of this is happening, along the lines of what would happen with a Final Fantasy or a Mario or stuff. That's this series entered that stratosphere around this time. And it was only a year later. But you also got to think about the fact that this was being developed before GTA 3 release. So I didn't know that until I started researching this episode. And you also got to think that it used to be a lot easier to develop back in the day. It used to be a lot easier to develop games because you didn't have to add so much detail to the world. You didn't have to add so many different types of items and little minutia to every single part of the world, which you see something like GTA 5 or Red Dead Redemption 2, God forbid. And it has so many different details that it probably took a guy working, long hours in order to just get that little detail that you might not even notice. It probably took like an entire team just to model all the rabbits in Red Dead Redemption 2.
I'm saying, like, could you imagine being the guy just working on blades of grass for a year?
This blade is my favorite. It has kind of a wavy end.
There is a guy out there that his portfolio is like part of his resume is like design the follicles on Mario's mustache. Like that is a guy that exists.
And you imagine that's like the highest echelon of designing hair. It's like I worked on Mario's mustache. That's it. I made it.
I know, right? They're sitting in the interview room looking at the mustache, and they're like, "Oh my god, hire this man.
We need this guy. We need this guy right now." No, but I remember when this game came out, I was confused. I felt like I thought it was like an expansion pack.
Yeah.
That
was my initial, because obviously it didn't have a number associated with it. So I thought
you expected numbers from everything back in the day.
Yeah, and I thought this was just almost like an expansion pack. I didn't really look at it as an actual sequel or another game, a full-fledged game, until I started playing it, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is a real game.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy how I don't even know, the staff, with the staff they had to have been working on this before.
Yeah, they had it working
GTA
before.
3.
Yeah, but the thing also with this game, you had to think about the fact that the renderware engine, which is what they used for GTA 3, which was developed by Criterion Games, it was a very flexible engine, so they could actually get a lot of the models, a lot of the physics, everything was just built onto the engine. So that's why you could have something like Vice City just a year after, and San Andreas, less than 2 years afterwards. So, with that San Andreas, it was a massive, massive expansion, so it took a little bit more time. But it's really a testament to the renderware engine and how flexible it was. So I don't think you could have achieved it with something like Unreal back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, the pace of development for these three games, 3, Vice City, San Andreas, is unreal.
It's crazy.
Like, the way they were able to push these games out back to back to back, and each one of them, being quality,
Well, now it takes 5 years to get a game from Rockstar. I mean, we had Grand Theft Auto 5 in 2013, and we just got Red Dead Redemption 2 in 2018.
That's right.
I do hope they start turning around a little bit more, but they're just such a behemoth now that it's hard to see them actually going back to that kind of release schedule. But even before that, even before Grand Theft Auto 5, you had them, releasing Max Payne 3, LA Noire, all these other games that kind of filled in the gaps between Grand Theft Autos.
But now they're running online stuff, and they gotta have staff for that, because that's the moneymaker right there. GTA 5 online is printing money.
Yeah, but it's I really do miss the days where you could have a yearly. Well, actually, no, you still have yearly releases if you count Call of Duty. But where you could have like a revolutionary title within a year. Yeah. If you think about, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask was released less than 2 years afterwards, and that was released under very intense time pressure. So it's not, even back in the day, it wasn't that common. You could have, a release from year to year, but probably it was about incremental updates. Whereas Vice City, yes, it built on the foundations of the first one, and it really wasn't a huge revolution, but it was significant in the things that it changed, and it made it that much better.
Yeah, they're Rockstar is definitely not going to Ubisoft their games. They're not dropping new games every year like this. But
and it's a good model, because the reality is that every time that a Rockstar game comes out, it's an event.
It is.
And so they don't dilute their publicity like that. Whereas with something like Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty, you're going to expect it every single year, or Madden. So it becomes kind of normal and commonplace. But I read the other day, a review on Edge about Breath of the Wild, and they said there are only 3 franchises that have that kind of event effect. And one is Mario, the other one is Zelda, and the other one is Grand Theft Auto. And it's for good reason.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah.
So I think Anthony touched on this a little bit, but I want to kick it to Paul for a second. What was your first experience with Vice City?
Well, I'm going to bring a relatively unique perspective here, because the first time I played it was 2 days ago.
Oh, all right.
There we go.
Well, then you should be able to tell me what your first experience with Vice City was like.
Even before that, it's funny that you mentioned 17.5 million units. Yeah. My copy of Vice City, I actually found in the garbage. I'm not even kidding. Like
it was one of those 17.5.
Pardon?
It was one of those 17.5. There were so many out there that I imagine a lot of them ended up in the garbage.
Yeah. Like back in my condo when I lived in Toronto, there was an electronics disposal bin.
Yeah.
And, like every time I go to check my mail, I look in the electronics bin because, people throw away stuff that's still useful, right?
Of course.
And I look in the bin and I'm like, Vice City? Yoink! And CIB too, right? Like case, of instructions, course. All in good shape. So anyhow, yeah, I finally popped it in the system the other day, this, garbage Vice City that I've owned for 6 years.
Literal garbage, yeah.
Yeah, man.
So you never popped it in?
It's a weird game. Like for me coming to it, so many years after release, right? Like I ordinarily don't mind playing old games, even from the PS1, PS2 era.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they look like shit, but it's all contextual, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And so what I noticed about Vice City was a few things. First, I hate to say this, it's not a good game.
All right. Well.
Oh, great way to start.
Can I hang up on you? Like,
take the closed captioning off
now. It's not good, but I kept playing it. And I kept playing it because even though the jumping is weird and the melee attacking is weird, and like firing a gun is also a little bit strange, and God forbid you try to do a drive-by without fucking driving into a tree or something.
Correct. See, this is the thing: is if you sat me down and you were like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, I'd probably be like, yes, 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 and then you'd be like, so this game sucks, and I'd be like, no. It makes no sense. Like it just works for me.
I just gotta say, Paul, you're such a perfect test subject right now. I am fascinated by this. I'm like the scientist that's looking at like the perfect specimen, and I'm just like, it's beautiful.
So here's the question, Paul: is you've played GTA 3? You have some experience with Vice City. Does Vice City feel like a step up from GTA 3? Obviously, in the context of you played GTA 3 much more contemporaneously than you played Vice City.
Yeah, and bearing in mind, like, I didn't play GTA 3 a heck of a lot either. Like, GTA 3 for me consisted of, well, it was a similar experience to Anthony in that, like, I saw it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, but, like, you saw it at a buddy's place, and then you saw him just beating up random people, and then it's like, oh my god, you can do this?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, right? And I think that's how most people experience GTA 3, is, like, they saw it, and, you did the classic... take the hooker into the car and then beat her up and take the money from her, right? Like, oh my god, we can do this kind of shit now. That's crazy. And so I would play it at a buddy's place, GTA 3, but I never actually owned it. And so, like, when you talk about Vice City as a step up, yeah, it's a step up in that I'm still not a big fan of that kind of game. But the production value in Vice City, like the voice acting, the story, all that kind of stuff. I played it for like 4 hours the other day, which is pretty good for a game that I don't like, so to speak.
Before you got terrible motion sickness.
Ray Liotta just kept you hanging around.
Well, yeah, I mean, and like there's so many little touches, man. Like there's so much nuance. There's so much, like when there's one part where Vercetti goes to get some new clothes. Yeah. That's what it is. It's the golf course. He's going to the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
And he picks up the golf clothes, rather, and he makes a comment like, I hope I look good in this. And then there's some guy off screen who's like, look at that ass.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Because I was telling Ozzy I popped it in yesterday. And the same thing, like just random, like this, hey, nice ass. Yeah. She's coming out the store. And I'm like, who said that?
Yeah. And there's so much of that. Like there's so many like little things, man. Like that golf course mission was like my favorite thing. One of my favorite things that I've done.
That game has so many
year.
Little moments, Paul.
Like,
I mean, that's
super frustrating, right? Like the golf cart. The golf cart controls like a piece of shit. Like honestly.
And it flips over quite often.
Yeah,
it flips over quite often.
Yeah, like it tips over, and like trying to hit people with a golf club it's not like 100% accurate. You're gonna whiff a lot, but at the same time, you're driving around in a golf cart and trying to like hit other guys in a golf cart, and you're hitting dudes with golf clubs while wearing golf clothes. So it's like we've reached the point where it doesn't matter how shit the game is. The stuff that you're doing is so ridiculous and fun
that it's just like, entertaining.
I
by
couldn't
default.
stop, man.
Yeah.
It's a game that is better than the sum of its parts, really, and it's one of those you had to be there games. If you look at it from the perspective of 2019, when something like Grand Theft Auto 5 came out, and when you have much more refined games, and the third-person shooting mechanics of games have become very commonplace, it just feels very awkward. I mean, let's be real. This was not a good playing game back in the day. Mm-hmm. The shooting was wonky and the movements were weird and the auto locking was terrible. Yeah. So even back in the day, it had a lot of flaws that you couldn't overlook, and it didn't look good. It's not a game that looks good. It's around the same time you got to think about the fact that Silent Hill 2 had come out, or Devil May Cry, or Metal Gear Solid 2. These were the type of games that were coming out at the time. So when you look at it in the context of that, this game kind of looks like shit.
Yeah, and I think part of it really is, and I think like with GTA 3 and to the same extent with San Andreas, I think a lot of the enjoyment is that you're sort of not, because a lot of things like Silent Hill 2, like Devil May Cry, you're sort of locked into a narrative and you just follow the steps from A to B, and you do this thing and you do that thing. Whereas something like GTA 3 or Vice City, 90% of the fun, I would say, comes from just doing whatever the hell you want. Like,
random stuff.
Not going through the story, not, doing all the things that it wants you to do, but you just going off and like, driving around and shooting people and getting into trouble and doing odd jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, Arnie, what was your experience with Vice City?
I mean, honestly, I think this is a trend because my experience with Vice City was pretty much the same thing. Like, I saw it at a buddy's house, and immediately I was, like, just enthralled by it. And I think a lot of it was just that 80s aesthetic. Like, the aesthetic of this game is so appealing to me. A lot more so than GTA 3's. Like, GTA 3 was fun, but as far as what it looked like, it was kind of drab and dark. I think to reflect sort of that New York vibe, right?
Yeah.
But with the move to Vice City, aka Miami, things got a lot more colorful. Things got a lot more pleasing to look at.
It was a pastel paradise.
Yep, pretty much. Yep. Pastel and neon was the name of the game. But yeah, it was a game that my parents like would not let me own for a long time.
How old were you, Arnie, when this came out?
If this came out in 2002, I'm a December baby, so I was 11. No, I was 10. I was 10 when this came out.
Prime time to play Grand Theft Auto.
I know, right? I was 10, and I probably played it when I was like, 12 or 13, around that time. And then eventually, when I did get it for myself, I got my parents bought me the double pack for Xbox. That's how I eventually got it. Yeah.
Well, I have kind of a common story there. I actually had GTA 3 and played a shitload of GTA 3 as I went over last time. But I did not pick up this game originally. And I think it was because of what Anthony said, which is that I thought it was an expansion. Yeah. And I also wondered, it's going back to the 80s. I don't care about the 80s. I wasn't there around that time. I was born in 89. I don't remember.
Weren't cool back then.
No, they weren't. They were like kind of
that's
the weird...
really the thing is like, the 80s were not cool during that time.
You thought of them as a time with like bad hair bands and bolo ties. and Robert Downey Jr. before he was Iron Man. So I didn't actually care for the 80s. And... I saw it at my cousin's house, and I played a little bit of it, and I was like, this is amazing. But for whatever reason, I was never able to pick it up. And it wasn't until I got the Xbox double pack that I actually got to play it in full. So like you, Arnie, it was with a double pack that I was actually able to spend a significant amount of time on it. One of the things that I like from the fact that it was ported to the Xbox is that the graphics were a little bit better, but Paul, you mentioned yesterday that you had some bad motion sickness with the game, correct?
Yeah. That's partly my fault. Like, I play on a projector, so motion sickness is always kind of a possible issue just because of the size. Mm-hmm. And usually for PlayStation 2 games like that, I'll reduce the size of the screen a bit. And then for Vice City, I just forgot to do that. And, like, the camera is just all over the place.
Yeah,
so
but beyond that...
it. But did they improve on that for the Xbox? Like, because
let me tell you...
better?
Yeah, let me tell you what happened with it. Because Rockstar used this kind of feature they call trails. And it kind of leaves, like, a trail behind you. Like, it looks like the refresh rate is just low. So there's a constant haze. And even back in the day, I used to hate that stuff. And so in the Xbox version, you could actually turn those trails off. I think you could also do so in the PS2, but it looked like utter crap if you turned it off.
Yeah.
And on the Xbox, it just looked better even if you turn it off. But that's also partly a culprit, most likely, for why you felt such intense nausea.
That's a good point, though, Paul, because I was playing it yesterday, and I was playing it for like about 2 hours straight, and I just got up and I just felt so nauseous. I was like,
so this game gets you sick. It looks like crap. It plays like crap. What the fuck are we doing, guys?
I was about to say, why are we doing this?
Why are we talking about this game right now?
Do we remember this happening back in 2002?
Not at all.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I had a child's constitution back then, Paul. So clearly, I just naturally was attracted to things that were terrible for me. Maybe that's why I play this game so much.
But let me tell you, even with all that, after I did pick up the game, it really was a huge impression that it left on me, because it really served as the introduction to the 1980s for me.
Yeah.
Like, before this, I really didn't know too much about the 80s other than what VH1 told me, which VH1 told me everything was crap. Yeah. And so I don't know if anyone remembers VH1. I don't even know if that exists still.
Oh yeah, Top 20 Countdown, baby. But now it's just like reality TV shows mostly.
Yeah, but for a lot of people my age, it was the introduction to the 80s. You had this whole new world, and you realize, holy shit, there's actually some good stuff from the 80s. I actually really dig this. I actually dig this music, or this movies, or whatever. And for many others, it was just a return to their childhood. You got to think about the fact that the people that were playing games and were reaching adulthood at this point grew up in the 80s.
Yep.
So this was a perfect 20-year itch for them. This was a perfect nostalgia kick. So it was perfect for both adults and for young teenagers that wanted to play something where, you got to beat up hookers.
Always a key. Always a key.
It was a huge... Even with all the negative stuff that we have just gotten out of the way, it really was the setting, and it was the feel that it gave you that really made it stand out.
You know what it is? Like, we were saying how the game didn't look that well. But it's almost like you always give, at least then, you gave open world games like a little leeway.
Yeah.
Because there was so much going on, so you weren't expecting too much in the graphics. Like, there were plenty of games I played that the graphics weren't top notch, but the gameplay was so good. Not the case so much with this game, but in general. But you gave it some leeway on it. So, I can't really judge Vice City on the graphics.
No, a lot of these things you can't really judge it on their own merit.
You can't really judge it on that. No. But it was really good. Okay, so yesterday I'm playing it, and of course I'm having problems, right? Getting sick, freaking can't shoot right, can't do this, can't do that. But this game did such a good job of getting you from, like you said, Arnie. I think it was Arnie, right? From point A to point B. Yeah. It just kept getting you from point A to point B, and before you know it, you just want to know what happens next. Yeah. Just keep going. You know. So it did a really good job of just getting you to stay there.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna dig into all these little factors and things, but it really is like I think Ozzy had pointed out before. This game is just like. There's all these, it's the sum of its parts, right? Like, there's all these little things that just keep hooking you in and keep you from wanting to stop. But before we do that, let's take a little break. We'll be right back in just 1 second.
All right.
minute back into Vice City. So before we talk about anything else, I think we do need to talk about the story. What little there is there. Here's the thing. I think with a lot of GTA games, the story is never the draw. It's sort of like, how ridiculous can we make these situations? But generally, it's just standard sort of run-of-the-mill stuff. So for Vice City, not much is different. You know, it takes place in Vice City, obviously. And the player assumes the role of Tommy Vercetti, played by the great Ray Liotta. Shortly after being released from prison, he sort of gets caught up in an ambush during a drug deal, and he seeks revenge on the people responsible, all along building your own criminal empire as you take on various forms of the criminal element, from like Haitian, Cuban, and biker gangs to mafia drug lords. There's a little bit of the crack epidemic of the 80s, sort of built into this whole story. So they're taking pieces of the actual city of Miami during the time frame that they're setting the game in.
I mean, it's basically literally Scarface
yeah.
with an Italian instead of a Cuban.
Yes,
That's
there's
the way,
even. I think
yeah,
there's
that's
like
the way I saw it.
Isn't there a mission where there's like they essentially play out the scene from Scarface where the guy's in the bathroom with the chainsaw?
Yeah. There's one, and you go in there and there's a chainsaw that you can pick up.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like blood everywhere. Yeah, it basically literally lifts straight wholesale elements from other movies, namely Scarface. Like the mansion is literally, Tony Montana's mansion in Scarface. It literally is like, even with,
I think you get like a suit that kind of looks like Tony
Montana's suit. Everything is just lifted straight from Scarface, and even some of the characters are lifted from other movies. Like Ken Rosenberg, the lawyer, is literally the same character that Sean Penn plays in Carlito's Way.
Yeah,
literally the same one.
Well, that's the thing, is like, obviously Vice City is based on 1980s Miami, but there are influences from movies and TV show. The three most notable: Scarface, obviously, Carlito's Way, and Miami Vice, which the 80s TV series. Like, I want to say that about 90% of the aesthetic from the show is ripped from Miami Vice, like wholesale. Like possibly. The suits, the speedboats, the attitudes. Like Lance Vance is played by one of the main guys from Miami Vice, essentially doing the same thing he does in Miami Vice.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, this game is basically a pastiche of other things. Like, I like, even the story, the look, the characters, all of it is how it brings it all together into one look. But that's not something that nowadays you could probably do. You couldn't pass off something like Grand Theft Auto nowadays, Vice City, and without getting like massive accusations of plagiarism or copyright infringement.
Not at all.
It's literally.
As cliche as this is, like, this entire game is a love letter to this, sort of place and this time. It's 80s Miami, like, all day, all night. That's what it is, and it does not try to hide that fact.
It was like a double shot of fucking nostalgia, straight to your veins. It was just like, this game was pure nostalgia.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, you grew up in Miami, didn't you, Ozzy?
I grew up in Miami, but let's
not
be
the
clear.
80s Miami, yes.
Not the 80s, and let's be clear. The Miami here, there are many games that have represented Miami. I think that the one that comes to mind principally is Driver. And Driver had a pretty good representation of Miami, where you could go to the Ocean Drive side and you could actually see a lot of the landmarks that were there, and you could actually go there and be like, oh, snap, I saw this in Driver. So there are games that have done a better job than like Grand Theft Auto at representing Miami, but Vice City, it has kind of the feel. It's Miami for someone that has never gone to Miami, basically.
It's Miami with the rose tinted glasses turned all the way up.
Well, there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it that actually looks like the actual Miami if you went there. But it has enough things, like the Strip, where you feel like, okay, I get what you're going for. Yeah. But no, it doesn't feel at all like the real Miami if you live there. But
it takes the generalities, right? Palm trees, neon, Cubans, like, and just throws them all in as like, this is like a pastiche of what we like sort of envisioned Miami to be in the 80s, or what we wish it was like. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what Rockstar does very well. They take something that is at once familiar and they make it into its own thing.
Yeah.
With something like Grand Theft Auto 5, you could tell a lot of the parts in Grand Theft Auto 5, you could pretty much tell what part they were lifting from in LA. With this, you could kind of tell, but it was different enough that it felt like its own thing. But it captured the feel, or at least what you thought the feel of Miami was back in the 80s. I'll tell you something. I was very bothered with the depiction of Cubans in this game.
Oh, were you?
I mean, it's Cubans for someone that has never spoken to a Cuban, basically.
Oh, of course. I mean, but I think that's sort of standard fare for Grand Theft Auto, right? Like, what they do to Italians, what they do to Puerto Ricans, what they do to
absolutely.
Haitians,
like the Cubans,
what they do to black people, like
the Cubans in this game are basically based on the Cubans in Scarface.
Yes,
absolutely. It's like it's like a ripoff of a ripoff. Basically, it's a copy of a copy.
I was so happy when I saw the Cubans in this game, Ozzy, because like the first thing I thought of was you and how much that must annoy you.
I mean, I was like, whatever, dude. I mean, I'm not the type to get offended. I wish they had done a better job, but one of the Cubans in the game was actually Danny Trejo, who is not Cuban.
Of course, not at all. and that's the thing is, I think that much like the way they didn't recreate Miami in creating Vice City, like I feel that Rockstar goes out of their way to just cartoonify any and all characters like in their games. I think they try to make them as ridiculous as possible to the point where nobody could legitimately sort of be like, oh, this is actually like purposely trying to be offensive. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to make it so ridiculous that it's just like, this is insane.
But
like,
they've kind of moved away from that a little bit, and as the graphics have improved a lot, and they've tried to become more serious in their storytelling, they kind of moved away from them, and I think that's a step in the wrong direction. I think because I think that's where a game like Saints Row really took the cake from Grand Theft Auto, which was like, we're not trying to be realistic here. We're just trying to let you have fun.
Yep.
Whereas I think as you guys know from my rant some episodes ago, realistic is not always better. And one of the byproducts of that is that when you're trying to go for realism, you're being held to a higher standard.
Of course. And
with something like this, if anyone complained, Jack Thompson or something, you're like, get the fuck out of here. It's basically a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yes, it's impossible to take completely seriously when they play it like not straight-faced at all.
Yeah.
But as part of that, I think that, what I've seen in interviews and seen from like descriptions of what it was like working on this game, the team essentially set out to make, in quotes, what they said was a living, breathing city. Essentially something that you feel like still goes on even when you're inside a building or not even playing the game. And to that end, I think they succeeded. Sort of like a soft success.
I wonder where that guy that said, look at that ass,
exactly.
He's at right now.
Like that guy, I definitely want to know where he's at now.
We got to track this guy down.
Yeah. But no, I mean, much like GTA 3.
You imagine he's all reformed and stuff. He used to be like, a crack fiend back in the days.
I'll tell you, they went a little nuts with the like in this game with a lot of stuff, even the like certain radio commercials and whatnot, the donut commercial. You got,
my God.
You got the guy that's like, oh, I got it all over my face.
And that's the thing is, I think
there was a lot of sexual innuendo.
Oh yeah.
I think little things like make that sort of happen. Like you see traffic flowing, but I think the thing that really does it for me is like you can leave a car, like playing a specific radio station, you can get back in the car, and it's not like it keeps on going from where you left it. If you're out of the car for like a minute or two, something completely different will be playing, or like you'll be in a different part of the same thing you were already listening to. So it's not like things reset.
One of the things that changed in this game is when you actually got out of a car, you could, I think, listen to some of the radio. Like the radio kept going, but lower as if it was coming from the car.
Because it's coming from inside the car.
Yeah. So that's something that wasn't in Grand Theft Auto 3, but was in this one. If it wasn't in this one, it was San Andreas. But one of those, started it.
Yeah. So I guess the general question I have, since we've talked about it a little bit, And I want to ask Paul first, is what did you think of the
you're
going to
get that question a lot. We're gonna throw a lot of questions at you.
I have so many opinions.
So what was your impression of like Vice City as a world? And obviously you didn't get to explore all of it, but you saw a good chunk of it.
Yeah, I saw a good chunk of it, and I thought it was really cool, man. Like, there's a very obvious difference between neighborhoods. Like, in some neighborhoods, I can carjack a Lamborghini really easily, and in other neighborhoods, all I can get is a station wagon.
Yep.
So there's definitely a distinction there. And going into the Malibu Club for the first time, like, it was basically Scarface.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, like, that was really cool. I wish that I had played long enough so that I could start buying property and seeing what happens when I buy property.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I wanted to do was buy the Malibu Club, like, immediately. I'm like, oh my god, I can buy this?
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the most permanent effect it has is it just generates money for you.
Yeah, it generates money and it gives you life, etc.
Yeah.
Cool.
You can go and get health and stuff. But yeah, I mean, one of the things is that around this time, I mean, I was growing up in Miami, and I can tell you the number one movie in Miami around this time was Scarface.
Oh, yeah.
Because every single person that you went to their house, if they were in their teens or their 20s, they probably had a poster of Tony Montana looking over his crack.
Oh, yeah.
Cocaine.
Yeah.
Honestly, everyone was obsessed with Scarface at the time. So for this, I mean, it's like, okay, this is like straight heroin for you guys.
Yeah, they're playing right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right in.
And
the
again,
other thing I noticed was that traffic was fantastic. Like, I never got stuck in traffic. I love Miami.
That's not Miami. I'll give you that.
There were like so few cars, and if there ever was traffic, I would just drive onto the sidewalk, and sometimes cops would see me and they'd be like, "Cool."
Maybe run over a few people.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, they should know better.
Yeah, let me tell you, the Palmetto is not like that at all.
No. Miami's actually very, very like forward thinking, so nobody drives cars. Everybody just walks and takes.
Get the hell out of here! I mean, you don't see people on the streets in Miami. That's how bad it is. Like, if you went to Miami, if an alien went to Miami and they saw it, it was like, what are all these cars? They live in all these houses. You would imagine that people don't exist in Miami because you only see cars.
Yeah. Well, and another little thing I just remembered is, depending on the neighborhood that you're in and the car that you take, the radio station that's on is specific. Like, if you go to like the Cuban Haitian neighborhood and you take a car there, it's probably going to be playing what's the radio station called? La Sombra, I think.
Oh, I can't remember. It was like Esplanada or something.
Espantoso.
Yes.
Espantoso
Radio. That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But if you take it from like the Malibu area, they might be playing like the new wave sort of synth pop station. Yeah, and I thought that was a really cool touch, like, to sort of make things just like feel a little more, alive in a sense.
Yeah. Every time I drove a shitbox, it was always turned to the right-wing talk radio station. And I was like, that's fucking perfect.
What about you, Anthony? Like, I know you also like very recently played Vice City again, and we talked about it a little bit. But what did you think of the actual city?
No, the city. I love the whole aesthetic of everything in the game. Yeah, it was definitely like an improvement. I did love, like, even in like one of the things I noticed, like, you talk about like a living city, was that like little details, like you see planes taking off in the background, you see planes flying and stuff, which I thought was, like, to me at the time when I first played it, even when I popped it in, I was like, oh, that is so cool. Yeah. That's such a cool little detail.
Well, when you think back to Vice City, you have a certain picture in your head, and for me, that picture is neon pink.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It feels like a city that's always bathed in a neon glow.
Yeah, everywhere. At some points I wasn't sure if I was a checkpoint or was just the lighting from the
Sometimes
signs. I would just stand in front of a building like, why is nothing happening? Oh wait, no. This is
I just didn't even know sometimes if it was the acid or if it was the actual game.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This game had a day and night cycle, correct?
Yes. It did, but again, it always felt like it was in this perpetual kind of night or twilight. And it was always in this day glowish. I'll admit I wasn't a huge fan of that because I like to see some variation in my games, but that's something with like Rockstar games around this time. They never quite capture the feeling of daylight. It always felt like it was kind of always dark.
Yeah.
But with this game, what made it different from GTA 3 was that there were just so much more like transparencies and glowing, lights. A lot of pink, a lot of purple, and even the lights from the tail lights, they left like this kind of glow behind them.
Yeah.
So
like Anthony said, I think sums it up, is a pastel paradise.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find Tommy Vercetti's shirt. I want that shirt. That's like that default like turquoise colored shirt. I would wear that every day.
What was the he had a Paul, you played it more recently too. He had that outfit that he wore when he went to go see the what was it, the Union guys that were picketing outside to start a riot. And it's just straight like Luigi looking. He had like the green with the hat. He just said straight Luigi.
And then you pick up a hammer and then you go up to them. Yeah.
And then the security guards, like, the security guards are hilarious. We're gonna go bust up some commies.
Like, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, is like, it's just so cartoonish in its delivery of some of these things that you can't help but laugh even when you're not supposed to.
Yeah, like there was one mission where you had to go scare the jurors, like 2 jurors, right? So you come out the building, and as you come out, some guy just gets hit by a car, and a hammer just pops out. He goes, and then you get a prompt, hey, that hammer might help for this next mission.
I know,
dead bodies. That was awesome. I was like, you know what? You're right. Let me take this hammer.
Yeah. And actually, that kind of segues very well into the next thing I want to talk about, which is the characters in this game. So we talked a little bit in GTA 3 about some of the characters, and I think our consensus was that Claude was not a very engaging main character.
I mean, how could he be? He literally did not say a word.
Yeah. Correct. And so I think that Rockstar decided that needed to change. So they, for Vice City, they created, I mean, I'm going to say, potentially one of my top 10 video game characters of all time. I love Tommy Vercetti so much. I think that Ray Liotta does such a good job of just like creating a guy that I can envision like it existing in real life. Like he's like a guy.
I hope not. I hope this guy doesn't exist in real life, because I'd be fucking terrified.
It's funny because I think that you're supposed to think that Tommy Vercetti is air quotes cool. But I just see him as like a guy who's trying to be cool, or like trying really hard.
Yeah, he's kind of a loser.
And that's what I like about him. Like he's not like your typical protagonist who's just like awesome at everything. He kind of sucks at like most of what he does. But he's just so entertaining as a character that I can't help but like be charmed by him.
Well, he's a psychopath, but he's enough of a goofball that you're like, oh, that Tommy Vercetti is just a cool
He's
guy.
not like for example, in GTA 5, there's Trevor, and Trevor is just like an actual sociopath, like a guy who's just insane and enjoys like harming people. But Tommy is like, he'll do all the fucked up things, but he doesn't necessarily like take pleasure in it. He's more so like interested in the girls, the cars, the money, the that sort of stuff, and like led by a sense of like revenge.
Yeah. Well, and there's a sense of like his can-do attitude. Even with Ken Rosenberg, who's his lawyer, he's like, all right, just stop crying. We're gonna get this done. We're gonna do this and do that. So he's kind of very much take ownership type of guy.
Even when he's telling Sonny's like, "Yo, you better get this fixed." He goes, "Yo, relax. I got this. It's fine."
And Tommy, obviously main character, but like we said, like the majority of the budget probably did go to paying the insane list of actors that they got to play characters in this game. And I think Vice City is the last time. Or sorry, not the last time, but Vice City is the first time that Rockstar sort of
one of the other. Literally the opposite.
Yeah. You know what? Let's just edit that part out and insert like somebody else saying something intelligent. It was the first time that Rockstar sort of decided to, actually put some money behind some actual voice talent to sort of bring their story to life.
No, I disagree. GTA 3 had a lot of good voice talent, and we went over that in the last episode.
I mean, it's just
these are just bigger names.
These are they try to get more notable.
Yeah,
actors.
A lot of name brand here.
Correct.
Yeah,
but
I'm really surprised that they got Ray Liotta, because Ray Liotta doesn't seem to me like the guy that's like, all right, I'll do a video game.
Apparently he was notoriously bad to work with. Like, some days he'd be really into it, and some days he was like not having it at all.
I don't doubt it.
I'm surprised they got Gary Busey to like read lines on this thing.
And then, following the success of the game,
Gary, that's not the phone booth.
Jenna Jameson, that's a microphone. You can't do that. No, can't do that.
Oh god.
The other Ray Liotta fact was that following the success of the game, he claimed that he was underpaid for his role as Tommy.
What an asshole!
That's why he's making those commercials now about stop smoking.
What is Chantax? You don't use Chantax?
That's why he's making. Like, get out of here, Ray Liotta. Your plastic surgery face. Get out of here.
But yeah, I gotta hit on some of these guys. So Ray Liotta, William Fichtner, Tom Sizemore, obviously Philip Michael Thomas, Dennis Hopper, Burt Reynolds, Luis Guzman, Puerto Rico's represent.
Yep.
Danny Trejo, Gary Busey, Miss Cleo.
Miss Cleo in the house,
Miss
y'all.
Cleo.
Fantastic.
Who plays essentially Miss Cleo in the game.
But as a Haitian crime
But as a
lord.
Haitian instead of a Jamaican psychic. Debbie Harry from Blondie, and obviously Jenna Jameson as Candy Sucks.
Well, let's talk about two of those guys. I mean, one of the things is a lot of character actors here, like William Fichtner, a guy
Luis
that if
Guzman.
you see him, you'd recognize him, but you don't know his name.
Yeah.
Luis Guzman, another character actor.
Pachanga.
Tom Sizemore, same thing.
Yep.
But dude, Dennis Hopper and Burt Reynolds, that's really damn cool, dude.
Yeah.
Like Burt Reynolds, R.I.P., died last year.
I see Dennis Hopper's
Smokey
dead
and the
too.
Bandit. Dennis Hopper is dead too, unfortunately. But Dennis Hopper played like a porn director, and it's one of the funniest scenes in the game because he's just like obsessed with the perfect shot. Like this. I don't even want to get into this without getting in trouble.
I think we're way past that at this point.
But dude, like Dennis Hopper is a freaking legend.
Yeah,
Burt Reynolds, Dennis Hopper, Easy Rider, a lot of. True Romance, just one of my favorite actors, honestly. And he's just kind of like playing a porn director here. Yep. And Burt Reynolds is playing a real estate developer, kind of like
which
a
is
Western
very,
type
which
of
is
guy.
very like appropriate for Burt Reynolds.
Absolutely.
But even like some of the, Danny Trejo, I mean, amazing. Like, to me,
he does a funny ass performance.
Character actors, just like a guy who I think really commits to the bit, right? Like, no matter what the character is, just 100%.
Luis Guzman too, like Luis Guzman's that guy who can only be played by Luis Guzman in every single role.
And it's like when you hear him, you're like, "Oh man, I love that guy."
Yeah, and I recognized him. He's the only guy, dude. I didn't recognize Ray Liotta. I recognized Luis Guzman like immediately. I was like, "Yeah, buddy,
that's
pick
true.
up another one."
Yeah, but Danny Trejo's character, he plays a Cuban crime lord, and all I remember from him is that he's obsessed with cojones. It's like, do you have big cojones? Really, really big cojones.
Isn't that like a Cuban thing? Like, they don't say that all the time.
We say cojones, but we don't say it like that. Yeah, dude. I mean, there are just so many. So many memorable characters. They're all cartoons. They're all caricatures. Oh, yeah. But they're really, really funny characters.
Like, you could, as compared to GTA 3, you remember every single one of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know them all,
GTA 3, like, you didn't even remember most of the characters most of the time. It was just because they were kind of like in and out. You got the cutscene, and that's it. And
this one, these guys stuck with you. Like, you remember these guys.
For sure. I mean, the only one that I usually remember from GTA 3 is 8-Ball. And that's because that's the guy that you see, in the beginning of the game all the time. But with this, it's like, you remember all of these characters. Like, William Fichtner's character, Ken Rosenberg, yes, it's a straight lift from Carlito's Way, but it's still a really, really funny character. Like, he's like, oh my god, I just peed my pants. All right, I'm gonna, So he's this neurotic, Jewish lawyer.
Yeah.
There's none of those in real life. So.
We're gonna get into so much hot water in this episode.
I mean, that's what you get for doing a GTA episode. Like, you can't. It's impossible to not talk about
this. And for bringing Anthony on.
Strike two.
We don't learn our lesson.
Oh man, but yeah, it's like I mean, like you guys said, it's just such a murderer's row of like memorable characters here, and it's a thing where like even despite the fact that I haven't played this game for I want to say at least like 7 to 10 years, I can still hear these characters in my mind.
Oh yeah,
like, when I look at these names and I think about it.
Well, it's funny because when I remember playing it the first time ever, and the first scene where they get is it when they got ambushed or when he went to go see Ken? But like when Tommy started talking, I was like, oh wow,
yeah,
he's talking. Like there's dialogue here from the actual main character.
Also, bonus points for not naming your character Claude.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, but let me tell you, I mean, another thing that they did with this one, they created a fictional band, Love Fist.
Oh, dude, my favorite band now.
Oh, it's great. And it's this 80s hair band. And at one point, you have to drive them, and then it turns out you have a bomb on your car.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes for one of the funniest missions ever, because they're all these British guys, and they are completely clueless, probably stoned out of their minds.
Yeah.
So, again, there are all these little moment-to-moment, funny bits that... I haven't played this game in years because I wasn't able to actually play it again, but I played it so much that it's just completely ingrained in my mind. It's just, I can't forget this.
It's one of those things where, like I mean, we've said it before, but you can't help but smile sometimes when you're playing this game and you're in these ridiculous situations. It's just, I don't know. I guess when I play this game, I think of, like, it must have been pretty fun to, like, work on this game, right? Like, sometimes you look at video games and you think of all the work that goes into them and how much, like, people have to slave away to create these products that we really like. But something like Vice City comes around and I'm like, I feel like this is one where, like, they must have just had a ton of fun, like, designing this stuff and, like, sort of bringing it to life.
Let me tell you, I could picture a lot of cocaine and prostitutes on the Rockstar offices. I think that's probably what fueled a lot of the nights in this game.
That's the breakfast that Ozzy had ready for me when I got there. So
you had to get in the zone.
Yeah, we had to, like, just really get into character here.
Listen, I'm Cuban, I'm a lawyer. I mean, cocaine is just, a hazard of the profession, really.
Anthony opens the door. Ozzy is just sitting in a chair with a mountain of cocaine in front of him.
My nose is like red all over. It's like, I've been doing this all night, man.
Yo, he's got a white dog that was black last time I got here, so I'm like, wow, this dog's really taking bumps.
No animals have been harmed to make it on this podcast. They may have taken a little bit of a sniff. They're used to it.
I'm just coming from the breakfasts now.
This is the Breakfast Club. Oh, God.
I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to segue out of this.
Arnie, you're in a tough spot right now. I'm glad that you're hosting this one.
Man.
I'm just like tap dancing my way out of this situation.
Maybe that's a good segue for a break, yeah?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the main plot that starts off with a drug deal gone bad, so, and on that note...
All right,
podcast gone rogue. All right, guys. Let's take a break.
I'm a dangerous past.
back.
Two bumps in.
We're feeling alive again.
We took 2 bumps. We went to visit Rockstar, came back during the break.
Anthony, wipe your nose, man. Wipe your nose a little bit.
Sorry,
Come on.
bro.
All right. So, one thing that I wanted to quickly touch on, because honestly, I didn't realize this until Ozzy had pointed this out to me. There's a lot of stuff that's new, like gameplay-wise. They did add a lot of features from GTA 3 that I didn't even think about. Like motorcycles are a thing for the first time here, helicopters and planes, and boats. Like you had to have boats because it's a Miami Vice ripoff.
Well,
so like,
you had boats back in the day, but as EGM called it, they were basically tubs that could float.
Oh, absolutely.
They were bathtubs that could float. But in this one, you had speedboats and you had sailboats. And I don't know about you guys, but that was a big addition for me because, you know, Vice City was one of the first games that made me really feel like, oh my God, there's a world out there, and I want to see what's out there. And so for a kid that was 13 that yearned to have freedom, you know, a game like Vice City really offered that. And for example, I always wanted to have a sailboat. I mean, I think most people do, don't they? Yeah. I mean, I think that's a thing.
No, I'm good.
I mean, sorry, I have zero desire for a sailboat.
I wouldn't want a sailboat. I could do a speedboat, though. That sounds pretty cool.
But I would actually go, like, out, and the only thing I wanted was to be able to fish, but I couldn't. Yeah. And so this game actually got me thinking about what else they could add and what were the possibilities, because they added so many things that were such a huge boon to the gameplay that I thought, okay, what else can they do? So when I saw the sailboat, and the sailboat has like the little cabin and everything, I began to think, well, what if you could just be out on the sailboat and just spend like your days out there and like fish and stuff like that and just go inside your cabin and stuff? It's like, why can't you just live in this world? So the game really made me feel like, you know, I could just want to live here, not in real life, but just like spend my hours here. And particularly the addition of motorcycles, that was huge for me. Because I would ride the Vespa, which was called the name that I'm not going to say on air, because I don't want to get into more hot water. And the Vespa, it was slow, but it handled perfectly. It was the best handling motorcycle in the entire game, probably even better than the cars. And I would drive it, and I would basically go like swirling and listening to Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. It was perfect. It was the perfect addition for me to just get on and just drive. Like, Paul, when you talk about the aiming and the gameplay, like, for me, that was all, like, collateral. I was just like, whatever. I'm just going to get in here and just run around and go on my bike and listen to Flash FM, basically.
The story is just an excuse for you to be able to explore more of this map. Like, you want to unlock more areas so you can just, you know, sort of fuck around and do what you want. And I will say about the boats, I think the boats are a huge addition because, like, water is really the final frontier of GTA. Like, you still can't swim in this game.
Which made going into the water very perilous.
Yes.
It made trying to get on a boat very, very dangerous. Yeah. That's something that people don't realize.
So boats really did, like, open up that world a whole lot because you were like, this is the only way I can sort of explore this. And it gave you a lot more variety in your missions and stuff like that.
And it had canals. Vice City actually had canals. So you could go in the boats, like, between the islands, etc. Yeah. So it had all these nooks and crannies that you actually really enjoyed. So let me also point out. Actually, I just forgot what I was going to say. So please go
What
ahead.
I was going to say was that aside from the boats and aside from the additional vehicles, I think the biggest thing they did, at least for me, because Ozzy likes his sailboat fantasy. What I like is being able to change Tommy's clothes and sort of customize him to what I want to look, because it opens up the possibility to some ridiculous outfits, some of which we've already talked about. And I think that's also, I think when you buy properties, you sometimes unlock outfits that are associated with those properties. And as you do missions, like, you unlock those outfits that you wear. So, you know, they designed some really cool costumes for Tommy in this game that I love, like, switching back and forth into.
Well, what I was going to say is that, you know, let's not forget that the helicopters were a huge addition because it was one of the first games that actually made you take a bird's eye view, literally, of the city. And the fact that you could do that, even though the draw distance was not that great, the fact that you could do that really made you see the breadth and the scope of the city. So with GTA 3, you had the Dodo, which had the clipped wings, so you couldn't really fly it. But you always kind of wondered, how does this look from up top? And with Vice City, you could actually do that. Yeah. And one of the big additions was a seaplane, which you could actually fly, but you could also land in the water. And that was one of my favorite vehicles. So for all the things that we talk about, the aiming and stuff, I think that the controls for the helicopters and the motorcycles, etc., they actually play very good. They were very responsive. So it made for a lot of fun just kind of flying around with them.
Yeah. And, there's smaller things. Obviously, a lot more weapons for all your destruction needs. And I don't know what it is about pizza delivery mini games, but between this and Spider-Man 2, people really love delivering pizza.
It was a time where people just wanted menial jobs in their video games. It's like you want a minimum wage type job in your video game.
Listen, that first, not even the mission where you have to get to the pizza delivery guy.
Yeah,
it's early on in the game. That thing drove me crazy. Just because of the controls, the camera was so wonky.
Yeah.
So, trying to, either run this dude over or catch him was just, you'd always miss. And then you're seeing the deliveries go down. Once it gets down to 0, you feel, and I'm I was going nuts. I was losing my mind.
Well, basically, and you deliver pizza like you do the drive-bys. So, like Paul said, you may just hit a tree trying to deliver a pizza. So it's not very intuitive. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
No.
And that takes us to what could very well be, I think you could argue, is the most important part of this entire game, or at least the part that people most enjoy, which is the music.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we got a lot to talk about.
It's the best licensed soundtrack ever. Literally.
It's the only soundtrack I've ever purchased.
Yes.
For a video game. Yeah, the box set.
The studio put it out with the release of the game. It was like a 7 CD box set.
Yep, looking at it right now.
Wow.
All the music from the game. And we're talking, this is expansive. I'm looking at it. It's around 9 hours of fully licensed music. It's about 113 songs and commercials. And this is, I thought when I played GTA 3, that was a lot of music and a lot of, talk radio and a lot of commercials and a lot of really fun stuff. Vice City has about 3 times as much talk radio as GTA 3 alone. And that's not even counting, all these songs and all the, all the commercials and stuff that they do. So, it's just such an integral part of the game because most of the time you're gonna be in some sort of vehicle, you're gonna be listening to music, unless you're a sociopath and you turn the radio off, and then you just
never trust anyone that
silence.
turns the radio off in GTA. Never trust anyone that does that.
And so you got your different music stations, which I always thought was a really cool idea. Instead of just playing a standard soundtrack, letting people choose the kind of music that they want to listen to. So you got your Wild Style, which is hip hop electro. You got your Flash FM, pop rock, K-Chat, which is where all the hilarious interviews go down. Fever 105, which is your R&B sort of station. V-Rock, VCPR, which is talk radio. Radio Espantoso, which we talked about, which is your Latin flavor. Emotion 98.3, which I will argue right now is the best radio station in the entire game.
It's up
all
there.
Power ballads.
Look at those songs.
We can debate it, but it's out there. It's up there.
And then Wave 103, which is your new wave sort of synthy pop station.
Yeah, and let me tell you, Ani. It's before you played this game, probably most people my age could not recognize any of the songs.
Oh, of course.
They were probably I don't know who the hell Mr. is.
Oh, dude, I recognize all of them.
Yeah, I know, but Paul, you're old.
Yeah.
You're old.
I know.
That was the thing. I remember when I would play this song, nothing pissed me off more than getting in a car and listening to a song that I really liked, and then I'd go around doing other stuff, and then I'd be like, fuck, what radio station was that song on? I want to listen to that song, and having to, skip through all the radio stations till I found, the song I wanted.
But let me tell you, one of the things about it, not only did we start learning about the songs, and they became kind of mainstays, and any one of the songs that plays nowadays will absolutely take me back to Vice City. Yeah. If I start listening to Your Love by The Outfield, I don't want to lose your love, I'm going to be like...
Keep singing.
No, yeah. Or I Just Died in Your Arms,
yes.
By Cutting Crew. Yep. Come on, dude.
I remember like when the game first started and you hear Broken Wings playing in the background.
Oh my god!
Well, but that's also
I was like, yo, this is so cool.
But that's also the thing. One of the aspects that this game did was that it really allowed me to see the original songs that were sampled in other hip hop songs of the time. Like Juicy Fruit is what was used for Juicy by the Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
Broken Wings by Mr. Mister was used in Tupac's Until the End of Time.
And that was me, like, like in the 90s, like that's all I listened to.
Was and so
sampled Bad Boy hits.
Yeah, like Totos Africas has been used by like Exhibit and a bunch of other people.
It's really cool when you listen to songs that go further back.
And you're like, oh man, this is really cool. That's why I like this song from Tupac or Biggie or whatever.
Yeah.
So it really broadened your horizons. So you got to see where the songs originally came from. Come on, man. I mean, Michael Jackson is here. We got 2 Michael Jackson songs. We got Kool and the Gang. We got Ozzy Osbourne, Twisted Sister, Motley Crue. Benny Moré, who is one of the greatest Cuban singer of all time, and no one here in this country probably knows him if you're under the age of 70. But they added him, and to me that was huge because it's like that really shows that you guys know what being Cuban is about.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know, dude. I mean, it was just the perfect selection. I don't think any soundtrack afterwards in Grand Theft Auto, not even the one in San Andreas, got close to how brilliant this soundtrack was.
Yeah. So, Paul, I know that you recognize most of the bands and artists on this list. Give me some of your takes. Like, what did you like the soundtrack? Like, what are some of your favorites?
Well, right off the bat, Flock of Seagulls, I Ran So Far Away. For real though, because that was also kind of like the title song for the whole marketing campaign.
Yeah, and it was on all the commercials.
Yeah, like for me who didn't play the game back in the day, I still saw the commercials like all the friggin' time. So when I hear that song, I think Vice City immediately.
I think the same thing.
Yeah, and I'm playing it for a few hours, and then it comes on the radio, and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's perfect.
Paul, that happened to me yesterday. Exact same thing. The song came on, and I was like, oh man, that's from the commercials. It just, I can't tell you what the commercials looked like, but I remember that was the song they played for the commercials.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I mean, and Flock of Seagulls, like, who knew Flock of Seagulls back in 2002? Like, it was just
Nobody.
like a forgotten band. And so now, even, like, in Pulp Fiction, when Samuel L. Jackson goes in, at the first, he calls the guy Flock of Seagulls over there. And, after that point, I was like, oh.
The other thing, too, I don't even know why I can't get enough of Radio Espantoso.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's so ridiculous.
I'm Canadian. I'm a white guy. Why can I not get enough of it?
Here's the thing is I feel like Radio Espantoso is sort of the one that feels the most appropriate for the setting.
It
like
does,
a lot of the time. A lot of what you're doing, I think Radio Espantoso sort of gives that vibe.
100%. And the DJ, like, like his R rolling is so magnificent.
Yeah, the R rolling game is on point.
I can't get enough.
Right. And they have a song called La Vida es una lenteja.
Actually, Paul, that's pretty impressive, man.
For a Canadian, I'm very impressed.
It's the Portuguese. It's the Portuguese.
No, but Portuguese don't roll their R's.
No, we do totally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Give me a quick and dirty, Paul. Give me like a top 3, top 5 songs.
Flock of Seagulls. When I Wear My Sunglasses at Night came on.
Oh yeah, Corey Hart.
Yeah.
And that
when I was playing, it happened to be nighttime, and I was like, yeah, buddy.
Sorry, I just had to sing it, dude. It's impossible not to do a karaoke.
Ozzy's such a tease. He starts and then he just doesn't continue.
I know, right?
Anthony, can you give me
and a Slayer song came on. Ooh. I can't remember which one it was.
Yes,
I think it was Rain and Blood. And I'm like, what the fuck? They have Slayer on this. This
yeah.
is unbelievable, man. Like, really, it's a very thorough catalog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Something for everybody.
Yeah.
What are your top 5, Arnie?
My top 5? I mean, okay, let me scroll down to where you listed Emotion 98.3. I mean, Mr. Broken Wings is my favorite song in the entire game, for sure. This is the first time I heard it. I loved it. Africa by Toto is a no-brainer for me.
It's legendary.
Sure, yeah.
I Just Died in Your Arms, another big one for me on here. One of the ones that I think I exclusively listen to in this song is Come On Feel the Noise by Quiet Riot. That song,
I hate that song, but it's so great for this game.
That song is such a banger.
Dude, I changed the station every time it came on.
I love that song. Come on, feel the noise. That's right. And then if I'm going, let's see, I'm trying to think of like...
Ozzy here with
I know, you just, yeah.
Oh, and then Your Love by the Outfield probably rounds it out. If I was playing it today, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5, The Message, gets a special shout out because I love that song.
Sure.
Yeah. What about you, Anthony?
Man, Ozzy hit on so many, and I got Ozzy on shuffle over here, so he's gonna start singing everything. I got so yeah, I'll say Curtis Blow, The Breaks.
All right.
Hall and Oates, Out of Touch. That was one of my jams. Let me see, Toto, Africa, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I got a special shout out to Tito Puente.
They Puerto Rican love, New Rican love.
You know it?
Man himself.
Well, let me just mention a few of mine. You guys have touched upon a lot of the big ones. I mean, Grandmaster Flash, The Message, one of the best. You know, Don't Push Me because I'm close to the edge.
Yep.
You know, it's just great. But Flash FM, dude, Flash FM is my favorite station.
I forgot about
Hands
Owner
down.
of a Lonely Heart. I love that song.
Yeah, that's by Yes. So Laura Branigan, Self Control, one of the most rocking ballads ever. Like, you know, sad Laura Branigan died like very, very young, but I just an awesome song. Bryan Adams, Run to You, another great song from when he was Bryan Adams. And from Fever, dude, like Oliver Sheatham, Get Down Saturday Night. I don't even know who Oliver Sheatham is, but I know Get Down Saturday Night, and it's just a really, really cool song. Juicy Fruit, which, as I said, like based, you know, the one that was sampled by Biggie and his song Juicy. And Summer Madness, dude, Summer Madness by Kool and the Gang. That song, there are no vocals at all, but it's such a cool song. Like, if you listen to it, you will recognize it.
Yeah.
Because it just kind of like builds up. Like, it really is like the summer where there's just a simmering heat, and it's just kind of like building up, and the tension is building up, and then it just kind of blows up. It's just a really cool...
This is sexy the way you describe
it.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm too close to Anthony right now. I mean, this might be... and one last one, Iron Maiden, 2 Minutes to Midnight. One of my favorite songs. And Megadeth, Peace Sells, but who's buying? So... It's great, dude. You know, even, Peace Sells was actually the intro to MTV News back in the day. And I didn't realize that until I actually played the game. And the intro to Peace Sells is actually that. So I was like, oh, that's where they got it from. So, but just a murderous row of great great songs here.
And look at testimony to how like varied this catalog is. 4 separate people, barely any crossover in what we picked, you know? It's just like, and we missed like Video Killed the Radio Star wasn't on any of our lists.
Video Killed the Radio Star is such a fun song. But dude, La Vida es una lenteja, that song literally translates to Life is a Lentil. Which just by virtue of that title along, and that's all they repeat on the show basically.
And this isn't even, I mean, this is just the music. We haven't even talked about the talk radio stations and the interview stations. Just I think everybody has had a moment in a Grand Theft Auto game where like you're driving to a mission or something and a song you really like comes on and you start taking the long way around, or you just stop in front of the mission until the song is over. That was me during like these interview segments. Like I would have to finish the whole thing before I get out of the car.
Dude, I had a rule. If Your Love came on, I wasn't gonna go to any mission. I was just gonna listen to it. So that was it.
Did they release another on any other games? Did they ever release a soundtrack like this for Grand Theft Auto? Like
not that I can
think of. So for San Andreas, they actually released kind of a curated set of songs. They didn't release like the full.
But this was the whole thing.
Not like this, though.
They released like a full, like almost like a 7-disc one where it was just like selections, and then they released also a 2-disc one, which I have back there. But not like this.
But this one was
they released a full
whole
thing.
package.
And one of the unfortunate parts about the re-releases is that they actually had to take out a bunch of the songs. So like when you played it yesterday, if you played it on the PS4, you're not gonna hear any Michael Jackson.
That's true.
Yep.
So that's an unfortunate part of licensing, which we've kind of touched upon it many times in this podcast.
Yeah.
You actually answered that question for me, Ozzy, because when I was playing it a couple days ago, I thought to myself, man, if they re-release this, like how on earth are they gonna get all the songs again?
Spoiler
alert,
no, they didn't.
No, and that's the thing. For example, with Grand Theft Auto 5, they've had to update it to take out the songs, which is I think it's absolutely insane. So that's there's an aspect of video game preservation there that's very sad, which we're seeing with like Gran Turismo, with Tony Hawk, that the licensing is actually impeding being able to preserve this game in its original state.
So wait, if I have a hard copy of Grand Theft Auto 5, and does it automatically do
it? Automatically
updates. It takes out those songs?
It takes out those songs.
Damn.
Yeah. So I think it's a huge shame, and that's something where we need to have a serious discussion about intellectual property and how we treat this, and whether this is kind of like for the common good. We should be allowed to have these licenses indefinitely, and once you purchase this, you can't really take it out.
Yeah.
Because I think that digital rights management has not really gotten to the point where we're protecting these products. And so a soundtrack like Grand Theft Auto Vice City, to not preserve that in its original state, it's a huge blow to the essence of the game itself. Because I would say 60% of the game is a soundtrack.
Oh yeah, more than any other game franchise, Grand Theft Auto leans so heavily on its music, and I think it's such an integral part of the game playing experience. Like even though it's not it's not original compositions, like the music is such a part of the game because you are experiencing it all the time.
Well, I think this is also the kind of game where original compositions wouldn't fit. Right?
Correct.
Like, it's not a fantasy world. It's trying to depict a real place, albeit in a cartoony way, right?
Of course.
But you need those actual real songs from that era in order to transport people to that location in the game, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, they used to do that with Grand Theft Auto 3 and the early Grand Theft Autos. They would just make their own music, and they would have like their own like fake bands and stuff, but it doesn't really feel the same way at all. For example, like Liberty City Stories, I was really excited because it was set in 1998, and I was like, oh my god, I can listen to the Backstreet Boys again.
Yes. I want it that way.
Exactly that way, not any other, just that way.
But that's the thing, is like it's interesting to note, like I think that this soundtrack is arguably one of the best of all time, like video game soundtracks.
No, it's the best. Yeah. I can tell you that from licensed soundtracks, I don't think there's any contest that this is the best created set of songs in any game.
And that's 100%. The thing is, it's crazy that it's just licensed songs, but the way that they've been sort of put together and the way they were packaged in the game just makes it like such an experience to like go through and like find your favorite radio station and sort of play the music that you feel is appropriate for any time that you're in that game. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ozzy, but I think in the Xbox port they also created an additional radio station that was like for your custom soundtrack.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's why the other day when I popped in my Xbox, I had a bunch of songs from back in 2004 just there. So I had like rap and hip hop and all the stuff that I was listening to back in the day, and I would just play that there. I mean, that was a huge difference for the Xbox, that you could add this because they had the hard drive.
Yeah.
So I it was also on the PC version, but it was good to have it on consoles.
Yeah, absolutely. Wrapping up our thoughts on Vice City's music, I think we're all in agreement that it's an amazing soundtrack. Am I off base here?
I mean,
it's the best.
Have we said anything?
It is the best. Unequivocally. You heard it here first, folks.
Number one.
It is the number one soundtrack of all time.
In Germany.
In Germany.
And Australia.
And Australia now, that's right. You can't sell the Aussie short. But I think that segues us now into what is probably the other thing that is most prevalent in Grand Theft Auto is like great music and also controversy. I don't think you can talk about a Grand Theft Auto game without talking about controversy. So I handpicked like the biggest ones from Vice City because I think every Grand Theft Auto game probably has more lawsuits than like most game companies have in their entire span of existence. But the game faced multiple lawsuits as a result of crimes committed by individuals who were, and I'm doing the hardest air quotes I can do, obsessively playing Vice City at the time they committed these crimes. The two biggest being like murders that occurred. There were 2 murder cases. Both lawsuits were brought by everybody's favorite video game hating attorney, was just Jack Thompson. If you don't know who Jack Thompson is, I suggest doing a Google search and enjoying the rest of your afternoon reading about his exciting exploits.
Oh, man.
He's basically devoted most of his life to trying to extort money from video game companies claiming that they caused violence in children, which is insane. I think the second lawsuit was for $600 million from Rockstar, which is, yeah, I mean, like, I could write zeros on a piece of paper too, you know? It's just insane. And it's funny, I recently learned when I was looking into him, because obviously I fell down the rabbit hole of reading all this stuff, that he is now a disbarred attorney, which, I mean, I'm shocked. I'm amazed, really, that it took this long. I think he was also involved back in the Mortal Kombat sort of situation. I think he had some lawsuits for that game as well.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, he basically just tried filing everything he could to see what stuck.
Yes, any game that had even a modicum of violence. He
or
was
music too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. He did some lawsuits against like gangster rap artists and stuff like that in the 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
So, you know, riding that wave, which I think is coming back around. I heard something about somebody wants to try to do, I think it's one of these states, maybe Connecticut or Jersey, it's Pennsylvania, I think, wants to do like a 10% tax on violent video games. So, you know, time is a flat circle. It all repeats.
Good luck to all video games. They're gonna tax Mario for being too violent.
Correct.
Turtles.
You do just like crush turtles under the hoof of your fascist foot.
Yo, man, that's an endangered species. We shouldn't be joking around.
Let's stop this conversation right now.
This is how we're gonna end up getting like another Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo, where they turned all the blood clear so it looked like sweat
or milk.
Oh yeah.
And depending on where you were getting hit, I guess.
I'm gonna punch that guy to a milky pulp.
And then the last controversy I wanted to touch on last, but this is honestly the entire reason that I created this segment of the episode, is because in 2017, now I want to be clear, this game came out in 2002. In 2017, the Psychic Friends Network sued Rockstar over the character Auntie Paulette, who we talked about before, was voiced by Miss Cleo, claiming that essentially she was too similar to Miss Cleo because they owned the rights to the character Miss Cleo.
Awesome. Too soon.
So they waited a year after she died to sue.
Yes. Which is insane. Like, their argument is basically like Rockstar is still putting out versions of Vice City, so they're still making money off Vice City. Therefore, like, they're within their rights to sue them.
Not even her family.
But this is so insane. Friends Network. The Psychic Friends Network wants to sue Rockstar over Miss Cleo being too similar to Miss Cleo.
Should we perhaps introduce our listeners to Miss Cleo, particularly our international listeners?
Oh my god.
Oh man, Miss Cleo. love Miss Cleo?
Miss Cleo was this old, kind of Haitian lady. I think she may have been Haitian.
You know what? I don't even think she was that old.
Maybe she wasn't Haitian.
When she died, she was only 53.
Oh, she was only 53 when she died.
Which is crazy because I would have thought she was older.
So she was, I guess, a character. She was a character, and she was supposed to be this psychic. And she had this infomercials where you said, "Call Miss Cleo now."
Yeah.
And she could tell you her future and stuff.
Her famous Jamaican accent, I think, is what she was trying to do, right? She was trying to do like a Jamaican caricature.
Call Miss Cleo.
Yeah. Oh my God, Miss Cleo, is that you?
And she's originally from like
Are you coming in from the grave?
We have a seance here, guys. Miss Cleo just stepped from the ever after.
You know what's funny? I was gonna originally joke and say she was from Oakland, and it turns out she was from California, though. I was like, oh wow, it's close.
When the joke crosses over into real life.
Wow, that made it too real.
Yeah, pretty much.
R.I.P. Miss Cleo. But yeah, no. So Miss Cleo was she 90s? Is that when like all her infomercials?
Late 90s, early 2000s.
I think early 90s maybe.
Yeah. So
we should have made her about late 30s. So
she was pretty young.
Yeah.
She died.
She was about your age.
I'm not.
She talked like an old woman.
But she was like very well known, like especially. I mean, I'm assuming up in Canada as well, since Paul immediately knows who we're talking about.
Oh yeah, well, like especially in Toronto, like we got all kinds of American affiliate stations, right? So
Miss Cleo
she was on all the friggin' time.
But yeah, that was the one that really got me. I was like, so they're suing this company for making a character that is too similar to Miss Cleo, but is also played by the woman who played Miss Cleo. It's one of those that like made my brain hurt. I was like,
well, I mean,
they must have known they were going to do this a long time ago.
What's that? Sorry?
I said the Psychic Friends Network. They must have known they were going to do this a long time before.
I was gonna say that when I was looking through an article about this, the first comment was like, they should throw out this lawsuit based on the fact that they should have seen this coming years ago.
I mean, it's shitty. Like,
it's so stupid.
Hey, let's wait until she dies, so we don't have to share anything with her.
Pretty much.
And
not even, like I said, not even her family. Like, not even her family was saying, "Hey, you're using her image and likeness or whatever."
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
It's the Psychic Friends Network.
There you go.
Wow. Fantastic.
All right. And I think with that, we're gonna take one last break before we sort of come back and wrap up this discussion on Vice City. All right.
See you in 2 bumps.
Welcome back. All right.
It's Miss Cleo over here.
Oh, that's it. You're sued. We're being sued as we speak.
All right. Podcast is canceled. I'm done. I quit. This is a madhouse. I need to take control of this
situation. Ownership, Arnie. Take the reins. Come on.
I feel like you do this to me on purpose. Like,
you got wandering spirits coming up on this podcast and stuff. I mean, what kind of house are you running here, man?
All right. So, one quick thing we want to talk about before we sort of wrap up here is Vice City Stories. Because I think it's related enough to Vice City that I think it's worth mentioning. It's a prequel to Vice City, obviously, and it focuses on, personally, my favorite character, so I'm amazed that I have not played this game. You play as Vic Vance, older brother to Lance Vance, and you... Basically, the story revolves around you starting the Vance crime family. I also really just enjoy saying the word Vance. It was.
We're gonna have to turn it into a verb.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys are vancing. Yeah, we're vancing right now.
It was released on the PSP. It was actually a PSP exclusive for a while on October 31st of 2006 in North America, November 3rd in Europe, and November 10th in Australia. So even though Australia didn't get the original release of Vice City, they sure as fuck got Vice City Stories on the PSP.
They need their portable stuff.
Exactly.
That is so weird.
I know. But I think they did get the Xbox version, so there's a chance that you had played Vice City at some point.
They're probably like, it's on a PSP. It's not a little console. Like,
I mean, it is a prequel, so technically you don't need to have played Vice City to play Vice City Stories. It was eventually ported in March of 2007. It was eventually ported to the PS2, and this is interesting because when it was ported to the PS2, it's the first GTA port to include additional in-game content. Like other games that have been ported before had like graphical updates, like some quality of life improvements, but this had like additional content. So there was obviously enhanced graphics. There's 5 new odd jobs, 6 unique jumps, 5 new rampages, and 1 new Easter egg. So not, nothing crazy, like nothing, like no new stories or missions, but I think something that like fans would appreciate, especially coming up from the PSP over to the PS2.
Well, I think, and also, Arnie, I mean, this came after Liberty City Stories on the PSP. And
yeah.
I think that it was still very impressive to have this massive world being built on the PSP. The loading times and, it had its drawbacks and it had its compromises, but still, just the fact that they could get it running was pretty impressive in and of itself. And let's not forget that before it came out, people were really excited about going back to Vice City. Mm-hmm. When it came out, the game actually didn't do that great. I don't think it sold very well, but I think that was more because the PSP was just a dying system at that point. But it was a big deal that we were returning to everyone's favorite city. And just for a lot of people, they were wondering, what's going to be the soundtrack? Could the soundtrack be as great as the first one?
Yeah.
No. But it was
a quick answer. No.
Man, you fucking buried the lead on that one hard.
but it still was a terrific soundtrack, and the only game that has Phil Collins. Not just in the soundtrack,
he is
but
in the
actually
game.
In the game.
Yep,
that's hilarious.
There's a Phil Collins concert in the game.
Yep.
That's so damn cool.
It is
even if just for that, play this game.
Yeah. I mean, like Ozzy was saying, like I was saying before, ironically, this is the last GTA game to sort of use Hollywood voice talent front and center. Vice City being the first, this being the last, sort of a perfect circle, if you will. And going forward, they would use, I hate to say lesser known, but just not as sort of recognizable voice talent.
No, they would use unknown voice talent. Yeah, I mean that's something that was very deliberate of them. I think that one, it would save on the cost, and two, these people were more manageable. I figured that after Ray Liotta, they were like, "Fuck this."
I can see that happening.
Yeah, like
Ray
fuck
Liotta,
that guy.
You haven't made a good movie since Goodfellas. Get out of here.
But they didn't skimp out on the voice talent for the PSP. Gary Busey, Luis Guzman.
Oh, Gary Busey, come on!
Listen, man, you get that's all you
Philip
need.
Michael Thomas and Danny Trejo all back. I support Gary Busey. I'm Team Busey.
You're pro Busey.
I'm Team Busey. I'm for Busey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this game. I think the big problem and the biggest criticism with this game is that it released at a time where games started evolving, and it was right around the time of the next generation leap, where the Xbox 360 had been out for a year and the PS3 had just come out, and you had something like Gears of War and you had Oblivion, etc., which were bringing in all these different aspects of gaming. With respect to Oblivion, you had like a full-fledged PC freedom RPG in there, and with something like Gears of War, where it was darker, it had very good playing mechanics and gameplay. And so Vice City Stories felt like a remnant of the past. And I think that the biggest criticism of it was that the story just wasn't there. And I know, I mean, you're criticizing a Grand Theft Auto game for the story, but the problem was that Vic was such an affable guy, that it made you kind of wonder, why the hell is he doing all these things, and why is he just following along with whatever people tell him to do? Why is he an errand boy? So, it was around this time that there were talks of ludonarrative dissonance, where it was like, well, why is Nathan Drake killing all these people if he's such a nice guy? And it kind of had that backlash where it was like, I don't know if this kind of gels together. So I think it released at a time where we were looking for more out of games. And I think that now we've just kind of gone full circle with that and now can take things for their face value. But I don't think the time and context in which it released really did it a lot of favors.
I agree. Yeah, like everything you said is correct, and I sort of fall into that same camp, right? Like, games were changing, characters were becoming more evolved, like deeper, there was a lot more character exploration going on, and I think that something like Vice City seemed sort of quaint in comparison to some of this stuff. Like, now I think that we've had a lot of that, and so we're ready to go back to something simpler like Vice City, but at the time we wanted something new.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm not even necessarily new. I mean, it really did. It was a retread in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of the same city was recreated and it was reused. Yeah. So it's not as if they changed a lot. And in particular, they didn't change a lot of the gameplay mechanics.
Yeah.
Which were the biggest weakness of the original game.
That's right.
So to play something like Gears of War, where you could hide on cover and you could go over the shoulder and it felt very responsive, to go back to something like GTA, where locking on is literally like trying to tie down a freaking bull. It just felt like, okay, this is archaic and obsolete, and it doesn't necessarily feel good. So I played this game, but I played it on the PS3 release of the PS2 version.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's okay. It's okay. I hate to say it, because then I wonder, well, is Vice City, the original one, just okay as well? And it's just that I just did not play Vice City Stories at a particular point in time.
Yeah.
But I could tell you, check this game out. But honestly, if you do it for the music, perhaps. But it's not something that you're going to miss a lot if you don't play it.
It was cool just to have a game on a PSP like this, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it was.
Yeah,
it's more like just, hey, look, Grand Theft Auto on PSP.
Yeah, when you divorce it from that, it just kind of like puts all the glaring weaknesses front and center.
Yeah.
Because it really was just this impressive technical feat of putting all of this in the PSP, and now the PSP is obsolete and dead, and you're like, well, I don't want to play this on the PSP, so I'm going to play it on the PS2 or on the PS4. They're like, well, this doesn't feel great. Yeah. So I think you lose a lot when you take it out of the portable setting in which it was released.
This was meant for that, just like Chinatown Wars, all that stuff.
Yeah,
that was portable. Don't make it anything more than that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And also, there's an element also that, because it's a prequel, I don't think there can ever be a good prequel. I happen to think that, because everything that's going to happen.
Shout out to George Lucas.
Absolutely. If there was ever example A. But
at the high ground.
You're playing as a character that will die within
all over the place on this one.
Oh man,
you're playing as a character that will die within the first 5 minutes of Vice City,
of the next game.
So it's kind of like, why should I give a shit? So I don't think prequels work. Because it kind of loses the surprise factor of the plot.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't necessarily need to see what happened before that, unless it's a completely divorced story, or unless it's something like Red Dead Redemption 2, where you're telling a very, very different narrative, even though it happened before, then I don't think it necessarily works.
And so the other thing that you mentioned, Ozzy, is the soundtrack. So obviously it doesn't live up to the heights. Still pretty big, though. 10 radio stations. They did switch out some of the original Vice City stations. Wild Style, K-Chat, and Fever 105 gone, replaced with Fresh 105, VCFL, and Paradise FM. It's still 105 licensed songs from the 60s, 70s, and 80s in a PSP game. That's pretty impressive.
It has In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins.
Yes.
So that's it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
but I think,
and it lets you do the air drumming, while you're playing.
I don't think it's a game. I don't think it's a complete game without Susudio, though.
A man after my own heart, Paul. And I think
it's just minor digression, Arnie. Hmm? Is there a worse song out there than Susudio?
Oh, excuse me. Clearly, you have not seen American Psycho, because Patrick Bateman does an excellent job explaining why Phil Collins and Genesis are the greatest band of all time. No, I mean, I think.
Oh, we're gonna get the Phil Collins fan club sick on us.
I think we can. First of all, I think the Venn diagram of people who listen to this show and people who really like Phil Collins is maybe like two people.
Now, remember you saying that.
He's big in Germany, so
when you get that first email.
I'm that guy.
I was really enjoying your show until you started talking about Phil Collins, and now, sir, I am no longer listening to this program.
I was just watching his movie Buster when I heard this.
Oh, my Lord.
I took it back, right?
Oh, boy.
Arnie, you're going to get the email from me.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God, I hate Susudio.
But what I think we can sum up Vice City Stories in a sense that, like, at the time, probably a pretty, like, interesting game and worth taking a look at. In the context of time and, like, looking back on it, you can probably skip it. That sound about right?
Yeah. Nothing more I can say with respect to that, dude.
I'm glad that we had such a strong emotion towards Vice City Stories.
Yeah, that sums it up.
And so, just wrapping the whole thing up, I think we do need to sort of talk about the legacy of Vice City just as a whole. And I'll start with Paul, since he is the newest to the Vice City sort of club. Obviously I can't ask you if Vice City holds up because you didn't play it when it came out, but overall, what do you think of it? And in the greater canon of Grand Theft Auto games, like, where do you think it stands?
It's hard to say because the game controls so horribly.
Yes.
So, like, as far as, like, the things that matter in a Grand Theft Auto game, at least the things that matter to me, it's like, I'll compare it to Grand Theft Auto 4. I know Ozzy loves Grand Theft Auto 4.
Yeah.
So in the ways that matter, it's better than Grand Theft Auto 4. It's sillier, it's more colorful, and in that way, it's a complete success. The soundtrack, obviously. But if you're looking for a game with tight controls that you're never going to get frustrated with, and that will never make you nauseous, it doesn't hold up in that regard. But then that's not really why one plays Vice City, I think.
Yeah.
So, it was fun, dude. Like, for a game that I played for the first time that I missed out on ages ago, I played it for hours. Yeah. And although it literally made me sick, I still had a lot of fun with it.
Good. Anthony, let me get your take on this.
Like, how do I put this? Just to jump on Ozzy's point from a few recordings ago, right? Playing this now and having played some Red Dead Redemption, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I honestly had more fun playing this.
And it's high praise.
Yesterday. I had more fun playing this yesterday, only because, not that Red Dead Redemption was bad, but this was just more fun.
Yeah.
There was just, the soundtrack, it's fast moving.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, it does a really great job of getting you to stick there and go to the next mission and the next mission after that. Even with its terrible aiming controls and whatnot, it was just still more fun to play. So, has it aged well? If you just look at it like Paul just played it, like, probably, from first time playing it, you're probably going to look at it and be like, I don't know.
What are these people on, basically?
Yeah, but
how much cocaine have they had?
Well, how much do we have left?
We're good. We're good.
So, but like, has it aged well?
I got my guy coming later. So.
Oh, God.
it's yeah. I mean, it's still a fun game to play. I think that's all I really care about. Not on the mic. He's distracting me with his bumps. No, it's still it's like I said. I played this yesterday. I played it when it first came out, and I would still go home and play it right now. It's just fun.
I will go along with that. It still holds up because the soundtrack still holds up.
Yeah.
And just because of that, you could just pop it in.
Yeah.
And put it in and just have a good time just running around, running over people, and then getting into a rampage, and then having all of them following you while you listen to "I Just Died in Your Arms."
Because like you had mentioned, the Rockstar games have gotten a little bit more serious, a little too serious sometimes. So it's just a little slower pace now, I guess, going forward. But this was like, this was just fun.
Yeah,
you didn't care that the controls were bad for a particular mission because the other one was 2 seconds away.
And it's still a nostalgia fix.
Yeah.
Like, even now, you can still pop this game in and you're like, and now it's nostalgia of a nostalgia. Basically, because now you're feeling nostalgia for the game that gave you the nostalgia.
Yeah, and now everybody's into the 80s, so now this game has an even better place.
Everything comes back around. So I'm just hoping that they make a remake of this. There are rumors that the next Grand Theft Auto is going to be in Vice City, and parts of it are going to be in Latin America.
That's going to be cool.
That would be very interesting.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, if... That'd be cool. It's just that, I hope they can't go ahead and remake this game just because of what we mentioned before. Like, the songs won't be the same.
Yeah, but that's a question. Can you tap into that same kind of feel? Because you're going to have used a lot of the good songs. I mean, it's not like the 80s ran out of songs.
Of course, yeah.
But the big ones are already there. Mm-hmm. So how do you do Grand Theft Auto Vice City in today's day and age when Vice City already exists?
Yeah, it comes down to that gameplay. It's going to come down to this.
Yeah, I guess it's that, but do you have to go back to the 80s? Yeah. Or can you do maybe Miami in the 90s? Who knows? Yeah. I don't know if you can actually go back to the 80s with a future Grand Theft Auto.
No.
I just don't think so.
Yeah. And as far as I go, here's the thing. This is my favorite Grand Theft Auto ever.
Oh, it is for me as well.
But also by virtue of I have not played it in 10 plus years. And after doing this episode, I think I'm going to keep it that way. I don't want to ruin the illusion that I've built for myself, right?
Yeah. Let me tell you, Grand Theft Auto 5 is a much better playing game. Like Grand Theft Auto 4, I could fucking give that game shit all day. But Grand Theft Auto 5 is a terrific game.
Yeah.
And it fixes almost everything that was wrong with Grand Theft Auto 4, and it still has that kind of looser atmosphere. Not quite as silly as Vice City and San Andreas, but it's very...
Yeah, it's the tone.
It's I think, in terms of game, Grand Theft Auto 5 is a much, much better game.
I played Grand Theft Auto 5 a little bit yesterday after playing in Vice City.
Yeah.
And wow,
it's still great. Great, yeah.
We take it for granted so much,
absolutely.
but like you pop 5 in and you're like,
and it's still selling, dude.
Yeah.
You know how much that game has made? It has made $3 trillion, dude.
That's
good God.
No, $3 billion, $3.6 billion. But an extra 3 zeros.
The GTA open world games have that thing where it's fast moving, it's quick. You jump in a car, you go, it's that's what makes it so fun.
But the thing with 5 was that it went back to just putting you in these absurd situations, like going outside of parachuting outside of an airplane with a car, and then things like that you're just like, what the hell am I doing? Or like going from a dirt bike to a car to a doing a triathlon of things.
I think the best thing I could say about Vice City is that it sort of hit that perfect spot of just like irreverence and also a compelling enough story to keep you going.
Yeah.
It just sort of like, it was in that sweet spot where you got to do whatever you wanted and it was crazy and it was super fun and all the missions were insane and the characters are super over the top, but it's also interesting enough that it keeps you moving on to the next thing, like Anthony said. I think with that, sort of wraps up our thoughts on GTA Vice City, unless anybody has any final words.
No, I think we covered it.
R.I.P. Miss Cleo. Before we close out, we do have some listener questions, and I'm very happy that we do because Anthony's here, and I'd love to get his takes on some of these. So I'm just gonna read like a few of them. We'll see where this goes. Because considering how this episode has progressed thus far, I think we have like 15 minutes of usable audio. So we're really gonna have to milk these questions. All right. So first question, and I'm gonna start with Ozzy on this one. Up Mushroom 88, a boy, asks us, who are your most influential game designers or producers?
Game designers. I know a lot of people give him shit nowadays, but Peter Molyneux, man. Peter Molyneux is just such a huge influence. I mean, he did Populous, so basically he created like the God Sim.
Yeah.
Black and White, which made you basically grow up like a Tamagotchi, like a living Tamagotchi. Just his Bullfrog days were just so creative. And even Fable was a terrific game. He also had this one game that he did that no one remembers, but that I loved. It was called The Movies.
Oh, I love The Movies. I played that game all the time.
It actually made you could actually make your own movies, and you would share them with other people. And
I had
so much fun in that game. So Peter Molyneux is one of those guys. Just a few other. Warren Spector, terrific, influence in the video game industry, because we have things like Deus Ex to thank for, Thief, System Shock, even BioShock now is an offshoot of that. And people like Will Wright, who did The Sims and SimCity, etc. I mean, you could tell that a lot of them are PC guys, but I think that the PC guys really were the ones that, made games kind of open up and, go against the possibilities of, the typical constraints of gaming. And that eventually started making its way into consoles. So interesting. I mean, I'm not even referencing any of the Japanese guys. I'm just talking about the Americans. But it's just because on the PC there was just so much more, freeform innovation.
Yeah. What about you, Anthony? You got any you can list off the top?
I think if I just gotta name one, it would be Hideo Kojima.
Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, I just think I remember just playing the first Metal Gear Solid game on the PS1.
Yeah.
And just being completely I could not put that game down. Like, there were so many things in that game that just blew me away. Like, and my favorite moment in that game was just having to put that control in the second port so that he couldn't read your mind. Like, stuff like that was just crazy. And he's like wild. Like, he just doesn't give two fucks. Like, he just does some crazy shit. Like Metal Gear, what was it? Was it Sons of Liberty?
Yes.
Like, those cutscenes made no sense to me. Like, why
You're the only one that would frame that as a positive.
It was in my old age, I just, I go ahead and just appreciate more.
Senseless.
Yeah. I was just like, why is there an egg being fried here? Like,
that's Metal Gear Solid 4.
Hungry?
That's Metal Gear Solid 4.
Oh, that was 4. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That was 4. So it was just the fact that he just doesn't, like, he just does his own thing,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
And now he's got the freedom to just do whatever he wants.
You thought you saw crazy.
Yeah, now I'm like, I have no idea what's coming from him, like how this is gonna work out, but it's just exciting to see. He's one of the only dudes I know like that in the industry that just does that. Like,
absolutely
keeps you guessing until the last moment. You're gonna buy this next game and you're not even gonna know what it is yet.
Yeah, Paul, give us one or two.
One or two. Probably Shinji Mikami is
he's huge, man.
Probably the first one I think of.
Yeah.
Just because like it's just original concepts with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he really tries to break the grounds of action games.
He really does, and he does really well with it, I think. Anyway, obviously the Resident Evil stuff, and then after that you've got the move over to Clover and Platinum. And Clover, he's working on like Okami and God Hand, and then with Platinum, there's like
Vanquish.
It's a hell of a resume, Vanquish. And going back to when I was a kid, like Yuji Naka,
yeah.
Like he's not even so much like a talented producer as he is a programmer. Like all these games that I played that had really cool effects. This is all Yuji Naka, like going back to Phantasy Star with the 3D dungeons that blew my mind. Sonic the Hedgehog, the fact that Sonic could move so fast was Yuji Naka.
Yeah.
Like that was his brilliance. So Yeah, those are the two I think of off the top of my head.
All right. And for me, I think, in the spirit of what we're talking about, which is Vice City and like sort of games that just go for it and are insane for insanity's sake, I think I gotta go Suda 5-1. I do like a lot of the stuff that he's worked on. I think he is one of the more creative voices in video gaming right now. Doesn't always work, obviously. He's had his hits, he's had his misses, but I think on the scale of everything, I like more than I dislike from him. And then for my sort of more classic pick, I probably have to go with Igarashi. I'm a believer in the Metroidvania style of games. After finally playing Symphony of the Night, I see the brilliance now. My eyes have been opened to Koji Igarashi's brilliance. All right. Okay. So Christian Sadler has a question that I thought was a little bit interesting because we've talked Final Fantasy here before. And so I think this question would yield some interesting answers. He asks, do you prefer the mainline Final Fantasy games or the spin-off Final Fantasy games? And I'm thinking specifically of Paul with this question, so I want to let him answer it first.
You're a jerk. Because I have to think about it.
Because remember that Final Fantasy Tactics is actually a spin-off.
Yeah, Final Fantasy Tactics is a spin-off. It's a hell of a spin-off.
That's what I'm saying.
But that's like the main spin-off, though. I mean, are the other ones, as comparable to?
I'm sorry. Are you saying that Chocobo Racing is not like in your top 5 of all time?
I mean, Ergeist or something.
There's Mario Kart and Chocobo Racing.
The Bouncer.
Chocobo's Dungeon.
The Bouncer.
The Bouncer. Oh wow.
Yeah. No.
Like the spin-offs. Look. I guess the question can be answered thusly. If Square was to announce 2 new games to be released in 2020,
yes,
and one of them was Final Fantasy 16, and the other one was Final Fantasy Tactics 2, I would be more excited for Final Fantasy Tactics 2.
Okay. Yeah, but would you be excited for Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles?
Actually, I kind of would. I have a lot of fond memories of that game.
You just had to put a wrench.
Sorry,
in
dude.
There is.
Ozzy just had to push you
to be made here. But I want to hear Ozzy's take on it because I think he has something to say about it.
Look, there might be people that have like a strong preference for Crystal Chronicles. I want to meet them.
Dude, it was a lot of fun, man. With 4 people.
I bet, dude. I bet. But come on. Final Fantasy, a mainline entry in Final Fantasy is, not quite an event, but it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's still a big deal, which is why people were kind of pissed off that a spin-off was turned into a mainline entry with Versus 13 turned into 15.
Yeah.
People were kind of like, well, that's kind of a cop-out because that wasn't the original 15.
But I will argue that...
And that's why people... Just a second, Arnie. That's why people are still pissed that Final Fantasy 11 is not a single-player RPG, and it's an MMO, and Final Fantasy 14, because they don't want to mess with the mainline entries because they're just so big. 11 and 14, according to people, they should be spin-offs. They shouldn't be mainline entries just because people care so much about the mainline entries.
Yeah. And I just as a counterpoint, I will say Final Fantasy Crisis Core is one of the most beloved games in that series, and it's a spin-off.
Yep.
People love that game. Tactics is a big, they've had
that's because people love anything Final Fantasy 7. That's because
also
it's
fair
so
point.
True. You could wrap a turd in Final Fantasy 7 clothing and people would buy it. Dersha Cerberus already did that.
Excuse you? How dare you, sir? What about you, Anthony?
My experience with Final Fantasy games is real limited because I really don't play too many RPGs.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I would have to say it's the main line.
Okay.
I would have to go with the main line.
Yeah, I think I would also lean main line just because I haven't played a lot of the spin-offs. But I think there is an argument to be made for the spin-offs, specifically Tactics obviously being the most successful of those. Okay, I think we got time for like 2 more. So let me take a look here real quick. Here's one from Mr. Game and Brews. What's a sequel that you want to see but probably will never happen? Anthony, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Why?
Huh?
Hair sucks. Why?
Oh, dude, don't even get me started. Very true. But you know what? I was just talking about this game the other day. Lost Planet.
Ooh.
Oh.
You want to see Lost Planet 4?
Yeah. And I said, and I had posted about it, and I said, we'll never see a sequel to this series, but it would be a cool series to see, like especially on current gen, or even next gen at this point. What's coming? Just because I always loved like that snow in that game, and that was on a 360 PS3. Yeah, you know, no, I'm sorry, 360, the first Lost Planet. I just think that was such a cool series, but like, you know, Capcom just started having those games outsourced, and I guess the third one didn't do too well, so that's it for that series. But I would love to see like a sequel to that, properly done in house.
Yeah, it's a good series too. Yeah. Like I guess I'm not surprised that the third one didn't do too well, but it really didn't. It deserved better.
Yeah, exactly.
That was Keiji Inafune actually. So he's the one that produced that one.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, the Mega Man guy.
What about you, Ozzy? What's a sequel that you hope to see but probably never will?
Any Konami franchises?
Any? Okay. What's a Konami sports game?
Winning 11. Let's be real now. I'm gonna be very specific. A Silent Hill made by Team Silent.
Ooh, okay.
Even saying that makes me a little bit sad.
Yeah.
It kind of like breaks the wings off my heart a little bit, and it's just like I will never.
Hey,
it's kind of like. Yeah, it's kind of like knowing that you're never gonna hear another News Beatles songs. You know, that's kind of how I feel about the fact that Team Silent disbanded because of Konami's stupidity. Mm-hmm. Silent Hill 4 was the last one, and even that was, you know, kind of compromised because that game was not, I think, supposed to be a Silent Hill originally.
Gotcha.
So I really do wish that at someday, if I had my druthers and I had one wish and they could say, what are you gonna have? It's like, okay, get Team Silent back together and have them make a Silent Hill game. I know Australia will agree with that.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. When they played in 10 years.
What about you, Paul?
I mean, for me, I'm just gonna have an easy cop out here and say a new single player Phantasy Star game.
I knew you were gonna go for that. I Oh, that was beautiful, Paul.
I would agree. I think that's a franchise that sort of died a very like sort of a quick death and like not really talked about as much as it should be.
Well, we haven't seen a new single player one since the Genesis, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Since
yeah,
Phantasy Star 4.
Phantasy Star 4 was which was a great game. And then it had the online, which was also great
Pretty
and
good.
lasted a long time, but it's not the experience that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And so I know that I'm never going to see another Yuji Naka worked on Phantasy Star game. So yeah, that would be my wish.
Yeah. For me, it's hard. There's like two that I really, really would like. If I'm going with my heart, it's Knights of the Old Republic. I want to see a proper Knights of the Old Republic 3. That would be the one that like day one I'd drop everything, like take 3 days off of work and just barrel through that whole game.
Would you still feel that even though Star Wars has been so diluted nowadays?
You know, the thing is that the Knights of the Old Republic, if they stay in the continuity that they established in the first two games, is so far removed from what is happening in like mainline Star Wars right now that I think it could be just as good. But I would want somebody like BioWare was back then to work on it. Like I don't think I want BioWare of today to work on it. I want like some up and coming like Atlas. Give me something insane since I'm making wishes here.
Now you would get basically Battlefront with some RPG mechanics.
Yeah,
basically that's what it would be.
And since me and Paul were talking about it fairly recently, Advance Wars is another one that like, come on, man. Like
I know, right?
Wargroove is out. Everybody loves it. It's selling. It's making money. Like Nintendo, please. Like I'm sure Intelligent Systems could afford to not make a Fire Emblem game for a year for you to give me Advance Wars.
I mean, how long would it take them to make an Advance Wars game? I mean, it's
it
probably,
would not take them very long.
Give them 9 months to a year, and that's it. Put a small team on it.
Yeah, and then if we're going really crazy, like if I could have anything, a proper sequel to Gunstar Heroes by Treasure would be amazing.
Actually, anything by Treasure. I just want anything by Treasure.
Anything that Treasure made.
Just bring Treasure back.
2 announced for 2020.
Oh, man.
I mean, guys, my whole goal with this podcast was to find a way to get Treasure and tell them, hey, bring the band back together.
They made the best games, man.
Yeah, man. They really did. They really did.
Pour one out for them.
I know. R.I.P. Miss Cleo, R.I.P. Treasure. And then this last one I think is going to be pretty quick. Quill Gaming 4000 asks, which member of the RFG team do you think is the sexiest? And I think this is the only appropriate question to end this episode on.
Masa.
That's what I was going to say.
Masa. Unquestionably.
No question, hands down.
I haven't even met Masa, but his voice alone. He sounds like...
He has a sex voice.
Yeah, he does. He sounds like a Bond villain, right? That realizes that he wants to save the woman he loves at the end of the movie and sacrifices his life. That's Masa in a nutshell to me.
See, I was going to say he's like Finland's Barry White.
Or that.
I don't even know what he looks like.
I know. I've never seen the man. But if I had to answer this question, that's my answer.
He's an enigma.
Yeah. The mystery is part of the allure, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess we've kind of let the cat out of the bag that we're all AIs just talking to each other on server.
I think it's already been established.
And Masa was given the God voice module.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was already established in canon that this entire show is just Paul doing several voices.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We did establish that. It's incredible how I'm able to interrupt myf. That's real talent.
That's a great act of ventriloquy, Paul. I tell you, you learn from the best.
Oh, Lord.
I love that it's in canon.
There is
Someone's going to build a wiki of this. Someone has to build a wiki
canon.
of that.
Paul keeps it on like scrawled on an old like newspaper that someday we'll write into a screenplay of some kind.
Yeah, I'll have it transferred onto like a wooden tablet.
Okay, that extra question was worth it.
What's the do you know the font in Microsoft Word where it's not even letters, it's just symbols?
Wingdings.
Wingdings. Like that's what I imagine like any written work about this show would be written in fucking Wingding.
How did you just throw that out so fast?
Dude, Paul is the font master.
Yeah. Font of completely useless knowledge.
I'm lost after Times New Roman. I'm lost.
Paul's good at trivia.
That was great.
All right, let's wrap it up, guys.
Now I want to get a Region Free Gamer shirt and make it in like Comic Sans or something. All right. So with that, completely, because we're not going to edit any of that out. I think this closes the book on Vice City. So
come on, man, the cocaine is running out, dude. I'm coming out.
So thank you, Anthony, for being on this show, and
thanks for having me again, guys. Wait, this is a second time on. I'm an exclusive company now,
returning
right?
Guest. And thank you preemptively for when we record the San Andreas episode, and you're back.
I think I've found a niche.
Anthony was a gangster back in his day, so we're gonna need to get him back
true.
on that.
These pants were sagging hard back in the
day. He was in the street corner.
They sag so hard now he just doesn't wear any pants. That's his standard look now.
Yeah, but it's okay.
That's what I was feeling.
When you're doing bumps, you don't even care.
All right, guys. With that,
we got the dogs, we got peanut butter, we're ready to go here.
we got to wrap this up before Craig gets on this now.
Thank you guys so much. Rate and review us on iTunes. If this episode is released, clearly we ran out of content.
It's gonna be released with a disclaimer.
Thank you guys so much. See you.
All right, guys. Later, Paul. Later, Arnie.
Where can we find you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit. Oh, fuck. Oh my God, Anthony, where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram, Polybits, Twitter, Facebook. Just come say hi.
Polybits with an underscore at the end.
Polybits with an underscore, but you could probably find it without the underscore.
There's another Polybits.
Are you serious?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, motherfucker. I'll tell. Where's Master? What did he say? What's his line? Fuck
punch motherfuckers in the face.
Yeah, I'm about to punch motherfuckers in the face.
Where can we find you, Arnie?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Region Free Gamers. We also have a YouTube page, and you can find us literally anywhere that you want to poison your ears with our voices. What about you, Paul? Where can we find you?
Instagram, Paul's_GameRoom.
Sweet. Bring us home, Ozzy.
Shadow the Collector with periods in between.
All right. Thank you guys so much, and just do the Lance Van Stance out of here.
Bump, bump.
He was a man of peace, living on a quiet farm in North Dakota. Till one day, all hell broke loose.
Tim, we need you. I'm a man of peace. I'm done killing. I want to raise a family. That's just it, Tim. They've got your family. No!
Jack Howitzer is Tim in Exploder. From the heart of America to the jungles of Cambodia, follow one man's quest for peace.
Ho Chi Bat, is that you?
Tim, I know you come. Just like old days, we kill everybody.
Tim, they've got your wife, but I'm not married. You are now to America.
He went in to save his country, but found his family and lost a friend.
Ho Chi!
Tim, don't leave me. You taught me baseball, Tim, and how to rap.
No! He would have been a fine American. I'll cry when I'm done killing.
Get yourself a body bag, strap yourself in, start making friends the American way. Exploder. Evacuator Part 2. Rated PG. May include patriotic garbage.